Hi, and welcome to the Art of Film Funding. I'm your co-host, Claire Papin, along with writer-producer Carol Dean, author of the best-selling book, The Art of Film Funding, and host of this show. Carol is the president of From the Heart Productions, a nonprofit organization that has supported filmmakers with the Roy W. Dean Grant, fiscal sponsorship, education, and resources for over 30 years. Carol also teaches the Learn Producing class. Each class features an industry expert guest instructor and is designed to give the information, guidance, and support to become a successful producer. You can learn more about this class and all of From the Heart Productions offerings at FromTheHeartProductions.com.
Join us for a deep dive with Xackery Irving, sharing the craft of writing, shooting, and editing documentaries and features under extraordinary circumstances.
Welcome to the Art of Film Funding. I'm your co-host, Claire Papin, here with Carol Dean to support independent filmmakers with wisdom, resources, and real stories from the field. Today, I'm honored to introduce a remarkable filmmaker whose work takes us to the very edge of human experience, Xackery Irving. Xackery is a New York-based director and producer drawn to stories that unfold in times of crisis, where resilience and identity intersect. His debut documentary, American Chain Gang, exposed controversial forced labor prison programs in the U.S. His follow-up, Nothing Without You, explored memory, loss, and obsession. And now with his latest film, Brace for Oblivion, he brings us an immersive chronicle from the Ukrainian front lines, filmed over 3 years, following 7 citizen soldiers through the cycles of combat and rare moments of homecoming. Beyond his films, Xackery co-chairs the Producers Guild of America's Employment Committee and actively supports the international indie film community. In our conversation, we'll cover the power of pivoting as a producer, trust your storytelling instincts, navigating today's markets, and of course, we'll dive into the craft of writing, shooting, and editing documentaries under extraordinary circumstances. And Carol, you met Xackery in New York City when he applied for the Roy Dean Grant for his feature documentary American Chain Gang in the late 90s, right?
Yes, Claire, and Xackery and I have been friends ever since. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Claire and Carol, for having me.
Okay. Well, your latest film, this Brace for Oblivion, that's such a great film. You're immersed on the Ukrainian front lines. So tell us what drew you to this story and how on earth did you gain the trust of the soldiers to film these intimate, high-risk moments?
I felt honestly when I didn't travel to Ukraine with a big plan, um, because I felt pulled not by politics but by the people, seeing and hearing the stories of civilians, volunteers, and soldiers who had dropped everything to defend their homes. I wanted to understand what it was like from the inside, and I had an amazing opportunity to travel to Ukraine. At first, I met volunteers and journalists, and then I met these, as you call them, citizens turned soldiers, who were very like us, not people who were drawn to war, but there to support their country and their sovereignty and their independence and freedom. Things we can all, I think, relate to. But living in very extraordinary circumstances that only got more intense as things went on. But the way I see it is, Carol, is that if we could put ourselves in a storytelling vortex. That's the best place to be for us as filmmakers, as storytellers. And whether you're writing a script where you feel compelled to tell a story, it's dynamic. And if you can be in a situation, in a place, either mentally or physically, that lifts you up, has a sense of chaos, but you're in the center of extraordinary moments and compelling subjects that you can lose yourself and understand that sometimes you can be in control and sometimes you're just sort of swept away by the moment. That's the key. And when I traveled to Ukraine, I was swept up and able to participate rather than try to kind of control um, how the story was told. Uh, Flying high with them and letting the subjects guide the story. That was so important, and I think that was part of earning the trust. Was I always referred to this as our story with the subjects, and we still keep in touch even through post production. And I thought it was also important to tell the story of the Ukrainian resistance through the eyes of the Ukrainians rather than making this a chronicle of the war as I saw it. It was a collaboration in the stories, in the experience that how it unfolded. I needed to understand it through their perspective, but I also wanted to engage with them so I could understand the moments, the stakes, and everything that was happening from their perspectives, from where they stood.
Oh, that's incredible because yes, it's to them, they're fighting for their homeland, but for their family and their friends and their neighbors. I mean, it's so personal. So yes, I guess approaching it as our story is a brilliant way to go into it because you're seeing it from you're an American, you live in a safe zone, you're okay,
Yeah,
but they're not. And so it's passion. They're in there because they're passionate about their country and their future.
that's right. And they're on an open-ended journey of defending themselves. And I could always step away if I wanted to. I didn't want to, obviously, because I was compelled to tell the story in a deepest way possible. It's just such a privilege to be in that time and place. But I have to remember that I have a different experience, not just from my perspective and understanding of the culture and language, which I have very little of, and I'm always trying to learn more. But I had to always remember that their experience is something that I can only um, try to connect with because for them it's an open-ended journey, and that's part of the storytelling. Is the film is a 3-year chronicle of the beginning of the war till basically where we are now, which is um, a time of confusion, bewilderment, and even more resolve. But being with these subjects, explaining their experience, and then just seeing moments of truth with no real dialogue, but obviously moments of action when they're fighting, but the reaction to the experience, the just these quiet moments of homecoming that are a part of the experience and why they're why they're fighting. We also just well, it was mostly me on the field, but we as a team, Jim Feeney, my editor, and I, were also sort of exploring how we could weave in the larger story. And the capital, Kiev, is a, a place where we would come back to get a sense of what the climate is for the people that they're defending. And so, we wanted this to be not a war film, but a film about humanity. And I think that's the spirit of the subjects. War is the last thing they want to be doing. Um,
Right.
Fighting combat is not something that they gravitate towards. They're people that you said are in situations where they have to defend their homeland. So reminding people of what is at stake to them by seeing scenes, for example, of a group of family members grieving the loss of those missing in action. An airstrike in the middle of the capital of the city being defended with Patriot missiles. You know, a parade of gear that materiel that was used to invade and conquer Kyiv, but it was destroyed. And people looking at them to see, this is a reality of what we're facing. This is almost what happened.
Wow.
So, weaving in that, it's not just for kind of storytelling scale, but we really want, it's all about the viewer, right? It's all about the immersion of this experience. So the subjects can connect with an audience by them identifying with their experience. That was the challenge we had in the edit. And in the field, it was all about just filming as much as possible without, crossing some lines of always sort of having the permission of when we're filming painful moments, but just as much as possible filming the experience, getting to know the footage intimately, even though we had about 1,000 hours of it, so that we could build that experience in the edit room. So that was the mindset while I was there.
So, right. So you're working on your, so what were the biggest personal and logistical challenges that you overcame?
Yeah, I'd put them in those two categories, Carol. They're logistic and emotional. Well, logistically, I was on my own, which actually was actually really helpful because I could move quickly, have a light footprint, but also, putting everything I had I carried with me on my back. So, you know, um, it was, every choice mattered of what I carried with me, how I got there, even how I communicated. And, building trust is an important aspect, and that's always something you daily build on. It's just so important how you kind of conduct yourself. But how logistically being there, getting there, and, staying in one piece
And
are kind
one,
of the headlines for the logistic part. But I think the hardest part wasn't logistical, it was emotional. You form connections with these people. I call them people, not just soldiers, but they're people that are not just wearing a uniform. They're people that we really focus on their sense of humanity, and that was a priority for them too. It's men, women. It's their sense of humanity and independence is a source of pride for them, even when
uh,
they're on the front lines. Particularly when they're on the front lines. So in filming them cooking a meal together, a medal ceremony, talking about their family members, filming that, it's also the experience of chronicling that. You connect with them more and more, and some of them um, didn't make it, some of them are missing, and I carry that back with me. The weight of their stories is something that I'm processing still, and it's very much a text of the film. Um, and I think there's a saying in that region of the world, um, may their memory be eternal. And I think that this film eternalizes not just the memory of those that have been lost, but the experiences of those that are still fighting. And I think you had told me when I was, Carol, you and I spoke when I was in Ukraine, and you gave me some great advice and some good guidelines and context. And one of the things you told me that I'll never forget was you had said, when you're interviewing someone and they have an idea about what they're experiencing, an idea of what they're fighting for, you said when they're saying something and they're vulnerable under fire, you know that this could be their last moment. It has such incredible weight. And that stuck with me because, the threat of harm is not always apparent. It can come out of nowhere. but their their shared experience of the pain, the fear, and normalization is what I would call kind of what they were experiencing. What would in the first days of the war be horrible, bewildering, scary, became normal. And a lot of what I would see was this kind of race between the horrors and normalization of the experience of open-ended combat.
Wow. Well, Zachary, the all the years you spent talking about having a light footprint. I remember when you were shooting documentaries for one of the channels, and you said you would go in with just one other person, and the two of you would get everything. You do the sound and the shooting and the decorating and everything that had to be done. The two of you could do it. That's a sign of a good documentarian, to be self-sufficient. And so you took all that experience on the battlefield. So you were a one-man band. You could do it all. That's wonderful.
Well, I think that's a lesson that really serves us all right now in this kind of developing disrupted time of telling stories. As much as we can do, as much as we can put, we'll call it production value if we're writing a scripted film, but as much as we can allocate our resources to be what's in front of the camera versus the support of what you would normally need if you're working with a larger budget, you have departments. If we can do that on every level within, the parameters of whatever story we're telling, that spirit of wearing multiple hats within storytelling on every, visual storytelling, the ability to do that sometimes opens doors for you. Many times, you know, if you have an idea and you can move forward on it, whether it's shooting a proof of concept or just getting in and finding your way and filming um, early on, having that sense of you know self-reliance as we're independent filmmakers and having that sense of independence and finding ways to do it, to get started, to carry us through with you know with the industry kind of redefining what it is, not waiting for gatekeepers to open the doors for us and just going for it and starting to produce material on our own. It's a real, it's a real strategy for moving forward in this day and age.
Yes, and you're exactly right on that. If there's a story that's compelling and you want to make it, you're going to have to put your time and energy and your own money into making it happen. And then
And
you can
it's
get grants
Sorry,
and all.
Carol. It also serves us as filmmakers because even if that doesn't yield fruit, you've done it. You've put yourself, you've got more time behind the camera or, or writing, whatever it is. If you get started, even if it doesn't take you all the way to the end to having a finished product that's something you would share with the world, it doesn't matter because you are getting better at what you do. You're also thinking in more critical ways the next time because you know from experience what works and what doesn't.
And yes, and you keep getting better. I
You keep
love it.
getting better.
Yes, this is what's so much fun. Going back to read blogs that I wrote 4 or 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And I like the content, but I can do it better now. I think, oh, I could write that better. And this is what we all strive for
That's
in,
right.
in this world of ours, in the filmmaking business. We want to keep getting better and better. But I wonder how did you handle the editing process when you had what, 1,000 hours of personal, intimate statements from people who had disappeared? How do you handle that?
Well, I say 1,000 hours. I didn't shoot all of those 1,000 hours, though. I'm shooting and directing. A lot of that was material that the subjects gave to me, and
Ah,
we were while I was had access to um, incredible access to the front lines. I was on a short leash. I don't think a commander in the Ukrainian army wants to have to fill out the paperwork of an American filmmaker, uh, you know, being lost or harmed. So, as time went on, I had more and more trust, and I showed that the priority obviously always was everyone having their full attention on the mission, their safety, and the collective goal of whatever kind of tactical um, priority they had. But when I was along for the ride, uh, I would hand off a GoPro as I was leaving the zero line, or I would buy a new camera for one of the subjects while I was headed one part of the front or one part of an area. The story would go on, so that I had that multiple perspective, and even you can get a sense as the seven main subjects, 11 total, were going. I wanted to have the camera in place so we could continue that intimate journey with them. So a lot of it was material that I shot, I'd say 80-90% of it. And a lot of it was material that I would go through that would be just so pivotal in telling the full story. So a lot of it was, well, first of all, I think you got to watch everything. And
Yeah.
logging it is incredibly important because you want to be prepared. The edit is a way to get lost in your footage, but it's also a great way to have an idea of moving forward and then give up that plan. But I don't want to bring James Feeney is my very talented editor. I don't want to bring James in and waste his time. So I believe in preparation. I believe in understanding the experience and writing a script so that each scene that not every scene is going to make the final cut. We have a way forward, and that's where we start. So I just do a paper cut of that scene with a lot of the possibilities of that extra footage as a part of that script. But I want us to have a roadmap forward for telling the story, and then give up that roadmap as we have our first, draft, first cut of a scene. But
Right.
operating on the scene level first, but on a personal level, it was like trying to shape memory because I was there, but I hadn't had years of footage. But I wasn't interested in making a chronicle. I wasn't interested in sharing my experience. I wanted the film to be immersive. I wanted you to be there with them as they experience things in the moment. So, the chaos, the waiting, the respites of peace, the fear of death, the confusion, the resolve, the sense of resistance. I wanted that to be visceral and real. No matter where you were coming from watching the film, that was the important thing. And that was kind of our guiding principle going through. So, we edited emotional arcs, not just events and scenes. So putting that together and always having that as a context when we were editing,
Yeah.
from that unit of scenes, to create, you know, something immersive, avoiding the sense of exposition and always going towards the immersive experience for the audience.
That's great. I've never seen a film like that. So I I'm so excited because I want to be part of the film. That's my favorite thing when I get so wrapped up in a film that I hate to see it end.
Well,
It's
that's the idea. I use this, I don't know if it's a good analog, but it's a vortex. And, you put yourself in the center of it. But the idea for doing that is not just for the experience of us as a filmmaker, it's for the experience of the viewer. You want them to have that feeling when they're watching and hearing your film. What
right.
the hell is next? You
Yes.
want that experience that you have not to be a chronicle of your experience, but you want that to communicate in the experience for someone you hope sees it on the big screen, uh, tomorrow, years to come. And I think you had told me, Carol, is, to have a sense that this film is, if you do something, if you make a film, it's out there, you hope for forever. But you have to also consider, you told me that this is something that might outlive us. And
Exactly.
for if even if it's just a family member of the subjects for them to see, their grandkids to see in the future, um, you want that idea of what you're telling to not need explanation, but to really be felt.
A major historical film of what was happening in our world at that time. And here are the people on the front lines. It couldn't be better. Now, Zachary, looking at your films, you seem to explore identity and crisis. whether in prisons or psychological thrillers or war zones. So the question is, how do you decide what stories are worth committing years of your life to? Because you do, you put in, you must have 5 to 7 years in this film.
You told me when I met you first, and you were advising me on American Chain Gang after I applied for the grant, is I was going back to Alabama to film in a prison, and you said, remember, films have a life of their own. They are organic beings, and you may want it to go someplace, but you have to yield to that. So yes, I have that knowledge that you're just like this is an open-ended journey for the subjects. This is an open-ended journey for all of us as filmmakers. We don't get to say when it's over. We at times have to abandon it and be finished because that's just the constraints of a schedule that we have. But we can't, we have an idea, we have an initial idea, don't we, Carol, of what the story should be? And then
Yeah.
we experience it. And then either it's from us understanding it or, getting some peer review of a screening or as a conversation or just stepping back from it, we understand what the film wants to be. And that's the important thing to keep in mind before you go into it and honor while you're going through. So yeah, I have an idea that when you enter a process, a film, it's going to take years, whether it's written or, a scripted project or not. But I guess it comes down to instinct, doesn't it, Carol? We're storytellers that are driven by that.
It has to be something that you truly connect with because of the
Yes,
time it takes. I think this is the longest art form, documentary filmmaking. All
that's
right.
right.
Or features, because sometimes it's 10 years to get a
Sometimes
feature.
it's decades. That's right.
Right. So, yes, it's up to the person. And it's the inner knowing. Noetic is the word. When it's inner knowing that this is your film, you're the one to make it, there's nothing will stop you. And that's what I love about documentaries because the tenacity is the backbone of the filmmaker. And they just take that idea against all odds and they, like you have. And we didn't even discuss how you got the approval to get into the front lines. How long did that take you?
Well, tenacity is key. And I think I just want to go back to the stories we tell. I think that that is a really good quality for the subjects, for the people whose story you're trusted in telling. I can't think of anybody more tenacious than citizen soldiers that are risking their lives in ways that are hard to fathom because they are defending their homeland with their lives and with everything they know and with a sense of how unclear and how it's going to come out the other end. That's tenacity in just such a pure form and in ways exploring those kind of stories just calls to you, doesn't it? But getting the trust is a slow process. So I was very lucky. As I said, I didn't have a clear plan when I entered Ukraine, and I reached out to people that I knew and friends of people I knew, and I was filming everything that was in front of me. I was really lucky to meet an independent journalist, Cristiano Tanazzi. He's one of the bravest people I know, and he said, "Please, come shadow me." And I met the subjects through him. That was just a meeting, and then I just there's just a moment where you fall in love with the idea of a story and it was time to leave. And I remember one of them saying, like, you should come back. And I've said, just without hesitation, just without thinking, like, I want to live here. And, it wasn't really a fully formed idea, but I was able to come back and I was able to stay. And I think, I live with them, I ate with them, and I got a sense that I'm not here to dip in and out. This is not a story that I want to live with you and understand your experience. And I also want to give you a sense to communicate it on your terms. And in doing so, further understand and serves the story. If it's legitimately through their perspective, you just get a real stronger engagement with it. So, keep it real. People can tell when you're manipulating. And I continue that. I continue the openness with the subjects to this day. One of the ideas we have is if we have a screening and it's at a festival, and if they have permission to join us, that would be the dream to have a panel discussion with the filmmakers, with the subjects, as a part of that discussion for an audience to participate in, because this was our journey collectively. So that idea is part of how I presented myself to them, and I there were times where I put the camera down, um, to show them that I'm here as a person, not just someone who is going to document moments. And the more I did that, the more I was encouraged to keep the camera up and keep it rolling.
Oh, good, good. How nice. They really got into it then. They
They
wanted
really did.
it. That's great. Well, this is the thing. Hollywood is known to say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Hollywood embellishes the story, but not a documentarian. So what you have to do then is create a compelling narrative arc and without distorting the truth. And that's not easy. You've got to tell us the truth.
You got to tell the truth. I think I had this luxury of the extreme circumstances that were the truth, and the what was in front of us, what was really happening, was just so engaging. I keep using that word engaging and compelling, but it was more than that. It was strangely fascinating. And the moments that you would, it was like seeing the most dramatic form of storytelling unravel in front of you. There were times where the front line would disappear, and where we were standing as a reserve base was the front line.
Wow.
There was the idea, how do we redefend ourselves? And this was happening. And I'm filming and I don't understand the language. I understand a few words. And as things went on, I understand more and more. But there are these times where I don't know what the hell's going on. And I just got to keep rolling with it. And then I interview someone who speaks English, or I understand something through some way. This is such a compelling moment that I'm so glad that I rolled on, because I got a sense of it was interesting. But it was just everywhere you look, it was something interesting. And the more you filmed, the better depth you had, the more opportunities you had to explore that. But I also wanted to say one of the lessons I learned making American Chain Gang, which was shot on 16 millimeter film and recorded on DAT, uh, that you talk about how you looked at your blogs, now you do something better. I look at that film a lot, and I think of, I was 25 when I made it, and I think what I could do differently. So many things. But even shooting on 16 millimeter film, I would film more. I would be present more. And, earning the trust and having that access is so important. But you gotta keep filming. Stick to your story like glue. Go down rabbit holes that won't pay off, because you'll be surprised how they do. And that's a lesson that I live by, is just keep filming. Just keep getting more material. Hand a GoPro off to someone while you are at a different spot. You never know. Ask for permission to go somewhere that you don't think you necessarily need to go. Without, don't be a complete nuisance, but um, open up those storytelling opportunities, because exploring the truth of your experience really comes from exploring it. And you'll find that truth is more interesting as fiction. It requires a little bit of discipline.
Yes, the truth is just, it's wonderful. Yeah. And sometimes you hear a true story and you can't believe it, but it's
Yeah,
really, that's where the Coen brothers came in. They took
yeah.
stories that you wouldn't believe and made films, and they were very successful. Well, the film, you made the feature film, Nothing Without You, and from that film to Brace for Oblivion, that's a documentary and a feature. So, what do you learn from one form that strengthens your storytelling in the other form? Tell us that, because I always worry that someone who's only made features and goes into documentaries may not have the talent.
Well, an actor will tell you when they're performing, the lines that are in a script, they have to feel true. They have to feel real. So the spirit of truth is always what guides you, even if you're writing something fictional. Well, when you're documenting the reality, the day-to-day realities of extreme situations, that idea of exploring what the stakes are, um, you want to get a sense of uh, scale, um, tension, and avoiding exposition. It's funny to say in documentary, have your exposition in both the written form and verite is the exposition being dramatized. So when we're in a place that is historically significant or there's a life and death kind of extreme situation, finding ways to explain that context while
Yeah,
still following the journey of the subject. I think those both apply. But the difference is when you're filming something, you don't want to force that sense of structure too early. You want it, it's a living organism, right, Carol? You want it
right.
to live. So you have a sense of what the structure is, but you're really not going to know until you live with the footage, look for those patterns and rhythms and emotional pivots. You had said recently, and it's something important to remember, is when we're making a documentary film, it's born in the edit room. And you had said when you're with your editor, I don't know if you remember this, your selection of an editor is really important because you're going to live in the trenches. I think that's such a good, colorful expression that really resonates. Is you are going to find your story, whatever ideas you had initially while you were making it, or before, those carry through and they can serve you. But be willing to sacrifice that and see what structure exists in the story, in the material, or lack of structure, depending on how you want to go about telling the story or experience. But it's like you're writing the screenplay while you're with the film and the material, and even before edit starts by exploring the footage.
Absolutely. Wow. Good advice. So, how do you see the current marketplace, Zachary, for independent
Oh,
docs? Do you think there are more opportunities now or more competition, or what do you see?
that's such. I think that the answer is changing. Uh, the last 5 years have been very um, disruptive. Uh, I think there's new answers to that question. I don't think I think it's been a really challenged market by
Yeah,
so many factors, right, Carol? I
yeah,
think we have from the top consolidation. There are fewer larger platforms to get your story on. There's this added aspect of the political environment here with if it's something political, being able to express it fully um, on a large scale, on a in a mass, especially in this country. So yes, I think we're in a period of deep disruption, and um, how it comes to the marketplace and how it ultimately, more from my mind, how it comes to a world stage, that's not a clear path, and it's getting more and more confusing. And I think, being well informed of, where you want your film to air, where do you want your film to be distributed is always important to keep in mind. But, we're in a vortex, not just as storytellers, but as people who are focused on the marketplace. We're at the whim of a lot of forces that we can't control. We need to be aware of them. The only thing we do have control is how compelling our story is. And that if it gets in front of the right people, it will build its own mass. And, understanding like where it would air and how it would be distributed on a streamer or YouTube or in a theatrical run is important to understand what makes your film more marketable and how to really present that well. But at the end of the day, it's the power of good storytelling that will kind of transcend a marketplace that's shifting rapidly.
yes, a good story. That's what it's all about. That's one. we go to the movies to empower ourselves. We want to feel good when we leave, you know. And it's a way that we move ourselves out of depression or sadness, or we're worried about something. But when we go to the movie, we think of nothing but the film. It takes over. So a good story will always survive. And I think that filmmakers just have to go into the story and say to themselves, if I have to, I will distribute it myself.
That's right. You can't chase trends. And I
Yes,
think audiences are hungry for the truth, not just, what is appealing to the marketplace today in 2025 or in 26 or however it merges. You can't chase trends. You can't cater to where things are now. But yeah, quest for the truth is going to guide us as filmmakers,
yes,
and having our authorship of our stories in our own way, um, staying true to that is what's going to serve us ultimately.
exactly. Well, Peter Broderick has some great ideas for distribution for documentarians. So it's peterbroderick.com, and he's put out three bulletins recently about dramatic distribution, self-distribution. And I highly recommend that filmmakers take a look at his ideas because they're out of the box and they help you make more money. The fun thing is that you can make more money by yourself, but it's a full-time job and everyone wants to make the film and go make another film. But that's going to have to change. If you really want to stay in the game, you're going to have to be able to help make money on your own documentary so you can afford to do the next one, right?
That's right.
So I think it's a fun time to be in the market because if we put ourselves in the position that this is a good story. We're telling a story, and I go out and I find my audience. I test and know who's really my audience. Then you're way ahead of most people. And then you can direct your energies to getting your film to that audience. So, what do you think about? You said something about pivoting is central to producing. So, share a moment on Brace for Oblivion where pivoting changed the course of the film.
That's right. Well, I will tell you this. It's self-financed and I did it on my own dime.
Oh,
And
wow.
I didn't wait for although, I did win a grant. Thank you. I didn't wait for the approval to move forward in a traditional way. You'd wait to get grants or even co-production to move forward. So I went for it and I found subjects and stayed connected with it in ways that I normally wouldn't. What I mean is, the run and gun stuff, the probably poor choice of words because we're talking about war, but the light footprint model of filming that's existed for a long time, but putting in an idea that you've if you travel light, you can pivot as far as your storytelling goes. And you can move quickly. You can hop on a train if a road's closed or GPS is whatever it is. Move quickly. Think about the possibilities and move fast. That's one of the things is wear a nice if you're in the probably in a war zone, boots are good. Always wear good footwear because you're
Yes.
going to need to move quickly and be light on your feet and be able to pivot. But that's in a production sense. I think as you're talking about the marketplace and time we spend, as we have limited resources, usually it's money, but it's time, right? It's your energy, what you're going to put your time into. You need to look at what other people are doing in your shoes, how things that are in the festival circuit or in the market, what are they doing? And be willing to understand the marketplace. But like you say, what Peter Broderick is saying, putting it out yourself, have the ability to jump on that if that makes more sense. But your guiding principle has to be your instincts always. But if your goal is to get your film to as wide an audience as possible, or the right audience, let's say you're making a film for a particular niche that you want to, it's an activist idea that you want to make sure you're um, creating something for a specific audience that engages them, whatever it is, thinking about how to get there and not be limited by the venue, like the path forward to get there. Um, it's there is no path to get there that's clear. Things are changing constantly. So being aware of what trends are out there, thinking about what is the goal, who should be seeing this film, how can I get it there? And the nice thing about living in this day and age is we have so many resources at our fingertips we didn't before. I'm not just talking about production, but we have an ability to reach an audience through social media, to engage with them. There are NGOs that would love to have a screening of a film. There's ways to build an audience without having a sales agent. It's always good to have one. There's ways to build momentum without having a festival run, but always thinking about what do I need to do to get to that big goal. And keeping your options open is the name of the game when you're thinking about pivoting.
Well, tell us about that social media campaign that you had. It was very successful. I understand you captured behind the scenes videos to build a more personal connection with your audience.
I think that's great advice for anybody to do. And somebody had told me to do that, another filmmaker, uh, as I was going in. And I think about, I would come back. I was there 4 times and I would spend, months, and I would come back to New York between rotations to the front line and talk to other filmmakers and get some context, screen the footage, get ready for edit, and then go back again. But what I noticed was when I was talking about the experience of making the film, that raised some eyebrows, that got some real interest. It's just the process of making the film. So I was told by a filmmaker, document what you're doing. And I had been doing that because I was making kind of director's notes and kind of chronicling my experience and how I was coming to decisions creatively about how to follow the story. But I just started doing it because, while you're there, you lose sight of where you are. And if you can relay, here I am in a house that's right on the front line. You can hear artillery going off, and this is what at stake, and these are the people I'm with. Well, that's an extraordinary circumstance you're in. As I said, I wasn't making a chronicle of the war through my perspective, but it opens up the storytelling and it engages an audience. If you are making a story in any capacity, I really think if you're writing a script is some of the most exciting storytelling exercise you can make because you can create anything. Document that. It may not go anywhere, but you have that moment in time where you were part of that process. James and I make videos all the time when we're in the edit room. I went to Buenos Aires to meet my composer who I'd never met before. And I, documented going to, traveling 5,500 miles to get some great music. Um, but, if you have this form, it's all about storytelling, isn't it? And if your social media tells a story about your film, it builds interest. And we, especially with documentaries, we're building an audience. It's a lot of grassroots. Even if you do have a great festival run, you want to build on that, and you want people to, any way you can open up that immersive experience in seeing like a behind the scenes video. When they see the film, they're going to remember, oh, that's where the filmmaker was. That's where his feet were. This is kind of the circumstances. When you see it visually, it gives you a cue and opens things up. People love process, don't they? I mean,
Yeah,
I watch. That's what I watch on social media is how to, making of. What was the experience like for making this film? Even if it's a film I haven't seen, I think that there's some value in that.
it's a lot of fun because I love Criterion, and I can go
Oh
back
yeah.
and see interviews with Kurosawa and all of those great directors and learn how they did what they did and get in their minds so that when you're looking at their films, you appreciate them much more. So, yes, I think that's brilliant. But I want to commend you because I understand you are co-chair of the PGA Employment Committee. Good for you. I mean, that's a lot of work to put into something that you love. I know it's all free work. And so, but putting your time there is beneficial. So tell us what insights you can share about building fair, resilient, and creative teams in today's industry.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have peers that I co-chair with on this committee and others that are committed to exploring the state of the industry and giving members uh, a 360 view of the industry. It's rapidly changing. But I get as much out of it that I put in. I actually get more because I just love the sense of community. It's very rare as producers and directors. Sometimes we just get so focused on our own project. We're in a black hole for a while, and it's nice to be with other producers and directors and writers that are doing the same thing and compare notes. So I like membership organizations like the Producers Guild in that just that idea of sense of community, especially coming out of COVID. It's been 5 years, 4 years, but it still seems like yesterday. So being in a room with people and having industry leaders come in and share their insights and perspective, it's great. And I think we all have a hunger for perspective right now. But we're all trying to navigate our path forward, trying to understand the landscape. It's uncertain, but we support each other. And while we're still trying to push creative boundaries, we need to build those environments or nourish them, um, so people feel safe in taking risks in storytelling.
Yes, people want new perspectives right
Yeah.
now. So anything out of the box, in fact, no box. People
Yeah.
are thinking on their own. And what I have seen is that when people don't know they can't do it, they do it, right? I saw someone in Australia who made a film and they didn't know what to do with it. So they gave it away free, but they had things for sale. And then they put the film up for sale after they gave it away for free, and they made over $1 million, right?
Wow.
Because everybody loved the film, and they came back and wanted to buy the download for their girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. Um, and they would have never given it for free had they known they weren't supposed to. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's a good example. We talk about pivoting, and one of the things we want to keep in mind is what are some success stories? And
Yeah.
that's a good one. You've always been focused on that in your blog, in your podcasts, in your classes, is what are some success stories that are out of the box? And as you say, without a box, because yeah, that's a good point. The structure is disappearing. So why adhere to what, is a traditional path to getting your story out there? Let's look at what exists and what people who don't know what the box is are doing. Great ideas.
In closing, for all of us, whether they're filmmakers, funders, or audiences listening, Zachary, tell us what you believe is one of the most important roles documentary films can play in today's world.
They connect us with what matters, and they do it in a way that is focused on unfiltered view of what's in front of us. With so much of media being consumed, and there's strength in short form social media storytelling or engagement. A lot of it's performative and filtered, and documentaries ask us to sit with something unshaped, unvarnished, and they challenge us and ultimately move us. And you say there's a hunger for new perspectives. There's a hunger for what's real. And that's what documentaries are. They're verite.
And and you have to give the documentarians uh, much gratitude for doing the research because when I watch a documentary, they'll say, this is here and this is over here. This is what this person said. This is what the other person said. This is what, and then let us make our own decisions. And I love it. But normally, most people don't have the time to go research something to determine what's the truth behind. You've been hearing statements, but what's the truth? And I think that's the documentarian's heart. That's who they are. They have to tell you the truth and show you all sides and let you decide.
When a filmmaker does that and lets you make your conclusions on your own, that's not always the way to go, and not always the choice that a filmmaker will make for good reasons. But I always like when a filmmaker lets you put two and two together and come up with the result, by experiencing it. Because I keep using the word immersion, and I think that for me are the kind of films that I really, having that freedom. The filmmaker just lets you swim in this experience, experiencing it kind of on your own and making your own conclusions while connecting with the subjects, the story, the stakes. That's a kind of film that really deserves a big screen experience. So, that's another part of Verite is, Verite is, it's rough, it's unpolished. It should be this, you should feel it, hear it, understand it. It should challenge you. And It's something that no matter what screen you're watching it on, there's that powerful um, instinct that it emotes in you that translates. It's from the filmmaker. And a lot of times what the filmmaker experiences on that journey of telling the story, it's so powerful to see a film that kind of translates that response, that instinctual response. Because we're watching films and hearing them, but when we feel them, that's what stays with us.
That's what stays with us. Thank you, Zachary. What great advice. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it. Lots of good luck. So your film now is, you're still working on the edit. You haven't finalized it yet?
That's right. You know how it is. You lock picture and then you unlock because you want to make it better and better. So we have it in a pretty good stage, and we're excited about launching it at whatever festival makes sense. And in the meantime, putting out the social media and inviting people to engage in the experience of what we're going to put out there.
Okay. For people that want to see and learn more about the film, where can they go?
That's right. So we have a Facebook, X, and um, what are the other ones? Instagram and uh, and um,
Facebook.
yeah, and we have it's Brace for Oblivion, FOR Oblivion, one word at Face for Oblivion, and we have on there updates. We have stills of the film. We have, you know, um, material that helps you understand who the characters are, what story we're telling, and then, as I said, behind the scenes material as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Zachary. Best of luck with your film.
Thank you so much for all your support, Carol.
Yes, you're so welcome. And Claire, thank you very much for helping with the show. You're really
Yes, my
cool.
pleasure.
Yes. Good luck, Zach.
All the best. Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Lots of love. Thanks.
Be well, everyone.
Now, in its second edition, Carol Dean's popular book, The Art of Film Funding, has 12 new chapters to cover all areas of film financing and how to avoid expensive pitfalls. Learn how to start with an idea and end with a trailer, how to make an ask for money, create your story structure and your trailer, legal advice, fair use, successful crowdfunding, how to ask for music rights, and what insurance you can't shoot without. Available on Amazon under Carol Dean and at FromTheHeartProductions.com. I want to remind our listeners that David Rakelin is a brilliant and talented award-winning musician who scores films and can compose music for a trio or for a full orchestra. David is a very good friend to the independent filmmaker and comes highly recommended by From the Heart Productions. If you need music to help tell your story, please contact him at davidrakelin.com. That's David, RAIKLEN.com. And Carol and I want to thank you for tuning in to The Art of Film Funding. Please visit our website at FromTheHeartProductions.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Good luck with your films, everyone.